It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover your property news. Yeah, been a pretty busy week and we're at the end of it. Another Friday. Yes, 7 days a week we are talking about real estate, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Tell you what, getting towards the end of the month, the 23rd day of August. And g'day to you, Samo, there in Perth, another frequent listener to the Real Estate Breakfast. Now, you wrote in to say that you're going into home ownership. How exciting, with a couple of your mates. I hope that they're going to be mates after the first 12 months. Now, you're hoping to buy in before Christmas a 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom property there in Perth. And you said that all three of you have had contributions from the mum and dad banks, which is, fantastic for mum and dad helping you out. Thanks for sharing that little bit of a property journey with us. Question that I've got, though, is 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Of course, one of those bathrooms is going to be an ensuite. Who gets that? How do you do it? Do you take turns every 6 to 12 months, turn it around, or do you do a coin toss? I guess if you were gamblers, you'd say, yeah, let's just coin toss. Let's just coin toss the ensuite. Or, of course, the person that wants the ensuite the most could put more money, I guess, into the property. It's an interesting one. And when you look across the country as a whole at some of the suburbs that have grown impressively over the last 12 months, there are so many to choose from. So this morning we're going to highlight just one of these suburbs, which is in the inner west, focusing on the area of Burwood, because in the last 12 months, this has jumped to a 35.8% increase as reported by Domain. Yes, just in 12 months, which brings the median house price to $3.16 million, nearly $1.5 million above the city's average. And let's face it, if you are in an area that is growing 10% year on year, you're probably pretty happy. But 35%, you are winning all of the way. So let's catch up with Matthew Nolan from Rich and Oliva in Burwood to chat all about this. And good morning to you, Matthew. Welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for having me on.
What would you be doing if you were Samo in this 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2 mates setup? How would you split off the ensuite?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It might have to be discussed over a barbecue and a beer, but I think it'll end up being a coin toss.
Yeah, I reckon the boys might do that. I reckon they might just say, come on, let's just go for gold. 1 in 3 chance. Come on, you could win it.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors.
Exactly. Now, what's going on in your market? I mean, that's a lot of growth that I was just talking about. 35.8%. That is gold in the last 12 months.
Yeah, Burwood's seen a big change. There's been a lot of high-end properties, people reinvesting into older homes and upgrading them significantly. So in the last sort of 12 months, we've seen a big increase in price with the demand. I think it's one of these areas that even though some markets have a downturn, Burwood's just always been consistent and it's always held its own. And now we're just seeing a significant jump in the values.
Now, I mentioned the high-end properties hitting the market, which has further boosted the area's median price. What are you seeing around that? Because I think it's been reported that some apartments have been popping up, some luxury apartments. Is that right?
There's been a bit of a change with a lot of the developments before they were put up there was very large, high volume of units in the high rise, and they were good apartments, but there seems to be a bit of a trend now with people who want to downsize from some of these bigger houses, but they want quality apartments and they want standout apartments. And so, in the last sort of 12 months or so, we've seen some high-end buildings opposite Burwood Park there, which were units that were built as a premium and they were targeted towards those who were looking to downsize from homes locally, but they don't want to leave the area because they enjoy the shops and the access to transport.
Yes, so what about the fact that you're very, very close to the Sydney CBD, just 11 minutes away? How much of a driving force is that? Because people do still like to be close to the CBD.
Yeah, it plays a big part in it. You have a lot of professionals that live locally. And while in the last few years there was a bit of a trend for people to spend more time at home, it's still important that they can get that access back to the city. And Burwood having a major train station certainly means you can get into the city in probably 15, 20 minutes on an express train. And that's been a big draw card for people. We often find that people sort of, come from other areas and they gravitate towards the train line of the inner west. And it's just because they've been at a major station, it allows those express trains.
And also a little bit of an education hub. I mean, this is always so critically important for the families to be around good schooling. A lot of private schools to choose from.
There's a big variety of private schools. We find that we're getting a lot of people moving from the south side of Sydney, from Cronulla and Sylvania, who've got children going to school locally, be it Trinity, PLC and MLC. And we find although they initially start off doing the commute, once they get 12 months into like a long schooling journey, they find that travelling gets a bit much. So they start to come into the area and they say, look, if we're going to make that move, we want to be right close to the schools. So, your pick of the schools really start from sort of Summerhill with Trinity. They come into PLC in Croydon. You've got MLC at Burwood. You've got Meriden, and Santa Sabina and St. Pat's are also very popular.
All right, we are talking with Matthew there in Burwood in Sydney this morning. We'll come back. We'll talk more about this particular area that has grown so much over the last 12 months. We'll do that next.
We help to break down real estate every day to help you better understand the Australian property market.
Here's a question. Are you considering solar power for your property at the moment? Now, one of the options to consider is the Tesla Powerwall. It is a compact home battery that stores energy from solar panels or the grid. It powers your home day or night and even during outages, and allows you to disconnect from the grid when you choose. The reason that I mention that is because Tesla's brand image in Australia has declined over the past 2 years, partly due to Elon Musk's controversial statements and support for climate denier Donald Trump. And when it comes to the EV market, it is broadening. Buyers in Australia are increasingly looking beyond Tesla for their buying options. And I think he's got a real problem here because Australians are already voting with their wallets. And let's face it, if it was you or I that was employed by Tesla, we would have been fired a long time ago.
You can join the conversation every week on the Real Estate Podcast.
And it is a Real Estate Friday, working towards another weekend around Australia. We are finding out about Burwood in Sydney with Matthew. And Matthew, as I mentioned, we're sort of heading towards the end of the month, the 23rd today. So spring is not too far away. What traditionally happens in Burwood with the spring market? Lots of enthusiasm to come?
We definitely find once the weather starts to pick up and gets a bit warmer, there is an increase in listings on the market, particularly a lot of the homes that have swimming pools or have some nice gardens and landscaped areas definitely become popular. And I think this year is going to be quite busy. Already we're seeing an increase in listings coming on, and we've already, got a number of properties coming to the market, which will, some starting very soon and some will, already scheduled in for November auctions. So it is a busy time and a big increase in numbers at open homes.
Have you had these vendors that have just been sitting on the fence waiting for spring to happen?
Yeah, there are some out there that definitely wait for the warmer months if they've got the swimming pool, just they feel the attractions there with the house, particularly, the appeal to families. It's a great time of year that people get out with their kids. The atmosphere at open homes is a lot brighter as you come into spring in the warmer months than what it is in winter. I think it's just the warmth and people standing around talking outside, which is a nice vibe.
Now, the reason that we decided to chat with you this morning is sort of all based on this 35.8% increase in just 12 months. How surprising, if at all, was that number when you saw that? Did you sort of go, well, I'm not surprised, or gee, that really does surprise me just how much that's grown?
I knew it had gone up substantially, it's gone up a lot in the last couple of years, but I knew the 12 months did see significant growth. I think that it was higher than what we all expected, and that was mainly because of these high-end of properties and a bit of the changing of the guard. There's been a lot of larger long-term family homes where people have held them for 30, 40 years come onto the market, and they're sort of once-in-a-lifetime transactions for families.
What about the demographic? I mean, what is the typical type of person who is buying into Burwood? In other words, is it their second, third home? Give us a little bit of a breakdown on that.
More recently, a lot of the buyers are younger families looking to get into the area for the long-term family homes. But we've also seen a rise in the parents helping their kids get into the market. Just recently, I sold a home to a young fellow, had his parents there at the auction, and they just wanted him to be nearby. I think that they're hoping for some grandkids in the future, and they want him to be close to them. So it's a bit of a mix in buyers.
I mean, yeah, 3.16 million with the median house price. I mean, you've got to have parents that are pretty well heeled to say, well, Johnny and Mary, we'd love you to stay close to mum and dad. Here's a pile of money. Go out and buy yourself a home. A
lot of them aren't first home buyers. A lot of them are already in the market. And so they could be selling locally to come from, where we're seeing, good units now sort of in the $1 million range around Burwood. And then we're seeing semi-detached cottages. Ashfield has also become a strong market where they've been in the high 1s to 2 for semis. And we're seeing a lot of those people sell and upgrade into houses to get into something larger. So the step up for a lot of people coming from a smaller home into Burwood is probably not a step up that a lot of people are expecting.
And just before I let you go, there's quite a cultural diversity, I think is fair to say, in Burwood, which really does showcase just about every wave of migration, I think, into Australia.
Burwood's changed a lot. I grew up in the area and my family's been in the area for a long time, and the multiculturalism that started in the area, probably 30, 40 years ago, has just developed even further. Now coming in on Saturday nights on Burwood Road, there's a part of Burwood that they call the Chinatown precinct, and I often go there with my kids. And when you go down there on a night, the atmosphere is just unbelievable. It's shoulder-to-shoulder room, there's food stalls, and it's a real buzz where I think a lot of suburbs tend to switch off when the sun goes down. That's when Burwood comes alive with the different multicultural restaurants in the main street.
All right then, Matthew, well, we'll leave it there. Great to get your input on that and just sort of break things down as to why it's had that runaway success. And all the best for the weekends coming up, and of course spring as well. And thank you for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a privilege.
Every morning from 6 a.m. across Australia, we deliver you the latest property news, commentary and predictions from Perth to Cairns and from Melbourne to Brisbane, 7 days a week, only on the Real Estate Podcast.
And then you just put in your own managers into those sites. Is that something that is happening?
Absolutely, yeah. So we call that syndication. A lot of the time they'll be set up by finance broker specialists who deal in the financing of management rights. And what they'll do is, they'll take investors or silent partners, as they call them, who will front the capital. Essentially, they'll own the management rights. And it may not just be one investor. Sometimes there'll be a consortium. There might be like 4 or 5 investors, each throwing in, $250,000 each. And then their job is to front the capital and be quiet. And then they'll put in a highly experienced manager who's paid on a salary, and they will effectively run that management rights for them under license. The actual people that own the management rights are the investors, the silent partners.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.